Well, my name is Andre Sweetland. I'm a senior in ecosystem scientist at CSU, and I'm here representing both CSU and SDG Group 3 because the other two members of my group can't really make it today. So yeah, basically our group is working to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all across all ages. So today we're hosting Stefan Moss, who has had a very decorated education career in the scientific field. And he is a very prominent voice in both environmental action and education. So yeah, we really appreciate him taking the time to come talk to our class and talk to us and answer our questions. So I think with that, I have some questions here, but I'm going to hand it over to Stefan.
All right. Well, first of all, let me just say how happy I am to be able to share space with everyone. This virtual life is starting to rub off on me. I'm sure you all feel the same. When we do so many of these calls now every day, it's like, man, it's like drinking water now, just to see everybody in kind of Brady Bunch mode. But it's good to see everyone. And I would definitely love to share a little bit of my story with you all. So can I share now? Should I share a little bit now, or what do you guys want to do first?
Yes, I turned over. You should have the ability to share your screen now.
Okay, great. Let me do that then. Got a little something here I want to share with you guys. Let me share my screen. All right, if you can see this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. All right, let me back it up here. Here we go. Woo. All right, so conservation and health. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey to conservation, my journey to health and well-being, and I really want to kind of wrap this up under the umbrella of stewardship, because I believe that that's where conservation, gains its best footing as we talk about sustainability, as we talk about how to just really make sure that the things that we're doing continue to the gears continue to turn in perpetuity. All the awesome things we want to see happen cannot end with us. It needs to continue to move forward. And I think that a stewardship ethic grounded in the understanding of the importance of sustainability really helps to make sure that it keeps on going. So a little bit about myself. My journey starts on a beautiful island in the Bahamas. I was born in the Bahamas. And I was always kind of just amazed by the beauty of nature and how nature could create real emotions. I would sit and watch sunsets. I would go to the go to the beach on the holidays, and just every moment was a wow moment. And I know that that's maybe different for folks that grew up in the city, or maybe grew up in other environments. But for me, I was always wowed just by the environment that I lived in. And I want to contrast that with, what my reality was in my neighborhood. So I grew up near an oil refinery. Up until I was about 5 years old, I lived and played near one of the largest oil refineries in the Caribbean, known as Borco. And so even though I was always amazed by the natural beauty, I was well aware of kind of humans and what we do. Can you guys hear me okay? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you fine.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I was always kind of troubled by, it seemed just like a monster. Human activity just always seemed to be this kind of boogeyman that creeped up into the most beautiful environments that I grew up in and lived in. And in this case, for me, at 5, I was really aware of, how very quickly you can go from very beautiful landscapes to just rusted, old, just hydrocarbon covered environments. And I remember the smell from the refinery, and I remember how it just turned me off so much. And I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know the forces, the political forces, the environmental forces, all the things that made this place what it was. But I knew that, on some level, there was something kind of wrong with that. One of the most transformative experience for me happened when I joined the Boy Scouts. And I didn't know how much it would play a role in my life until later. And in particular, my journey in the Boy Scouts involved someone that you might not be able to see. Let me just kind of move you guys over. Okay, there you go. Okay, if you look on the screen here, you'll see me where the arrow is. I'm very much happy to be in the Boy Scouts. And in the Bahamas, being a Boy Scout was a big deal. It was an American organization that had lots of clout. And so if you became a part of the organization, it was almost like you got to experience things that, a lot of local boys didn't get to experience. You could go camping, you can learn how to, do ropes and just learn how to survive in the wild. So it was a very transformative experience for me. But what was also transformative was the lady on the right-hand side, the light-skinned lady with the fro. That's my mom. My mom joined Boy Scouts. And she represented for me the heart of what stewardship was, in terms of raising a child. She understood that in order to be a successful parent, she had to enter my world as a boy and be a part of the things that I enjoyed being a part of. So she definitely instilled that stewardship ethic as a kind of a Mother Earth figure. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to enter environments that I'm not necessarily maybe as comfortable in, but I will be there and see you through. And so this powerful Black woman became kind of like a guidepost for me. And she was with me through my journey. And she was definitely someone that I understood to be someone that realized the value of stewardship early on. And so she was a very important part of my life, and obviously still is. Some other experiences: when I went to school, I had a big culture shock. I moved to the United States when I was in my 20s, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I did not experience racism in my hometown, and I moved to Tennessee. And I had some interesting experiences on the Tennessee River. I was able to complete grad school through the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga with a partnership with the Tennessee Aquarium. So I worked for the aquarium doing herpetology work, and I met a very interesting character, Dr. Thomas Wilson, who became a mentor to me and taught me about the river and taught me about turtles. And so I learned how to take blood from a turtle, which is something that I think every human being should be able to do. But it was a moment of, again, transformation, because I grew up, in an island environment with crystal clear waters that I could see all the way to the bottom, and going into the river and being covered in leeches. And, it was just a different experience for me. And I didn't think that I would actually grow or like it. But ultimately, I was rewarded not just with my grad work, but also with the transformative experience of working on the river and seeing how the river impacted the nearby communities, seeing how the river was impacted by previous industrial activity. So it was definitely a moment of reflection for me from a stewardship standpoint, helping me to see the value of rivers where I didn't have that experience before. So when I finished grad school and finally started to build a career, I got involved. My training in environmental science at the graduate level, I did work on hydrocarbons and also like PCBs and flame retardants and some newer environmental contaminants that were on the scene. And so with my training, I was able to secure a position with the Bahamas government doing work through the UN, the Stockholm Convention on POPs, persistent organic pollutants. And so having a chance to travel internationally and seeing the way other countries were solving problems was another transformative moment for me. And again, from a stewardship standpoint, seeing the many different ways that people try to solve problems worldwide. We had, as a small island state, we had our own challenges with lack of resources, with lack of political will, with a real struggle to understand the science behind pollution in general. We had landfills in the islands that didn't work. So people would just dump their waste in their backyards. And that's exactly what you see here. Here is a quote unquote landfill on one of the islands where people just dumping stuff. And so it hurt. And along with this experience, working for the government, I also did some consulting work where, I did some work for BP and Shell and a few other, quote unquote, Fortune 500 companies where they didn't like the fact that they had to pay an environmental consulting company to clean up their mess. I mean, it was almost like, trying to get blood from a turtle, trying to get this work and trying to clean up, the messes that were made. And ultimately, it was kind of a depressing job. And it was something that I realized I couldn't do in the long term. So I got out of environmental consulting. And through some really good friends, I got into working on issues related to public lands, in particular the National Park Service and the Forest Service. And through those experiences, I was able to travel and meet some incredible people who have inspired me, still inspire me. And of course, Dr. Bowser is one of those people. Sarah is one of those people, Dr. Ramsey. And so my journey to public lands really stemmed from looking back on it now, my experiences about as a Boy Scout in my own hometown, my experience seeing the way humans impact, land, and my desire to want to keep the things that are beautiful and pristine, to keep them that way. And maybe that resonates with some of you. Maybe some of you have also come from a place where you have just seen the way humans can be on public lands and seen the way we interact in our impact. And you just know that you have to be a part of the solution. And I hope for some of you that are taking the same path that I took, that, it leads you to that same quest for stewardship and that same quest for, wanting to leave the planet in better shape than you found it. So I got into teaching. In 2010, I just dropped my consulting, gig altogether. It was taxing on my body, taxing on my family, just taxing, period. And when I stepped into the classroom, I found my real passion. I found that I could inspire young people to make different decisions, to make different choices than the previous generation, and to inspire them to think as a steward, and to think as someone who has the power and the ability and the skill to make better decisions. So I started teaching high school, started teaching middle school, got an opportunity to teach at Georgia State. And so, I've just kind of grown in this kind of education space. But I didn't want to kind of just do it in a classroom. I thought that being in the public land space, that there would be so much opportunity to take students outside. In fact, I pursued some opportunities to impact some other communities. I joined Outdoor Afro, which is an organization, a national organization that takes, people of color outside, Black people outside. And I wanted to do that just to kind of build my outdoor skills some more. And also, my conversation and communication skills, because again, I'm an immigrant. I moved to the United States in my 20s, did not really fully understand all the ins and outs of what being an American really was. And really now still, I'm always learning and hearing different perspectives. So I just kind of want to immerse myself and find my tribe. And it's been, again, another transformative experience for me. I worked with Outdoor Afro for about 4 years, and that really helped me to kind of build my understanding of the struggles specifically of Blacks in America, and what public lands look like, and what experiences in nature look like. And those were not my shared experiences. Even as a Black man moving to the United States, I didn't share the same fear in some cases of the outdoors. I didn't share, I grew up in a place where I could go anywhere, anytime, without really any fear of, being, watched or followed or harassed or anything like that. And I quickly learned that people move through public lands and outdoor spaces differently in America. And that was obviously an eye-opening experience for me, moving here as an adult. About 4 or 5 years ago, I met Dr. Bowser at a conference, and which I'll get to in a minute, and joined the RMSSN community, which is, again, another life-altering experience for me, where I can network with people around the world. RMSSN, of course, Rocky Mountain Sustainability and Science Network, gathering young people together to do science in public lands, which is like, that lines up perfectly with everything that I have ever wanted to do. And so it's just been such a blessing. You see Dr. Ramsey in the back. It's just been such a blessing to be able to meet with students who are passionate and really understand what the issues are, and are working in their own way in their communities, in their universities, wherever they are, in their countries. There are people here from all around the world working to solve problems, not just talking about it, but actually, in the trenches doing work. And so through the Diverse Environmental Leaders Network, which is a network of professionals from all around the country, I was able to meet Dr. Bowser. You can see, if you look very closely on more toward the right, you can see I'm in the back. I'm the tallest guy, and right next to me is Dr. Bowser. And we didn't have as much of a conversation at this actual event, but afterward, we kind of kept in touch. And networks like this are so important. And so students, if you have any opportunity at all to network with people in your field that are doing the same work, take advantage of the opportunity, even if it means being uncomfortable. Not every networking opportunity is going to be comfortable. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone if you want to grow. You have to surround yourself with people who are, doing amazing things. And so please take every advantage to network. And so through networking with this community, I was able to meet Dr. Bowser and open the doors for RMSSN, which has been an amazing experience in my stewardship journey. And so now, I'm teaching still, which I love and enjoy doing. And I've also started a small environmental stewardship training education kind of company where I facilitate stewardship discussions. And so let me move this to the side here. I've done most of the work that I've done recently in the last 3 years or so has been with the Forest Service. They have every year a group of interns that they work with to prepare them for jobs in the Forest Service. And so I come in, my experience as an environmental scientist, as an educator, and as someone that's kind of worked in a couple different spaces, I really stress the importance of being prepared for a career in public lands work, especially as a young person coming in. What are the skill sets that you would need to have in order to be successful? And so we talk a lot about stewardship. We talk a lot about, obviously, stewardship of Earth's natural resources, which I call planetary stewardship. And that's all the skills that you learn, obviously, in a grad program or an undergraduate program, or even as a citizen scientist. But also there are these other pieces as well. The peripheral stewardship, which is stewardship of your relationship with others. I always talk about the fact that, you have organizations like the Forest Service who unfortunately have a history of being male dominated. And also when you look, in terms of the makeup of the organization, there's little diversity, and not really much in the way of representation of what America looks like and what America is becoming. And if you think about it purely from a science standpoint, if you just think about biodiversity and what that means for the environment, right? I mean, biodiversity is so essential for habitats to be, functioning well. And that also carries over to our organizations. It carries over into our experiences as human beings. And so being able to relate to others and really empathize with others, that's a part of stewardship as well. You can't love forests more than you love people. You can't love public lands more than you love the people who ancestrally lived on those lands, your indigenous community. So it all kind of comes together, and that's kind of the heart of my stewardship training, programs. I try to help people understand the importance of seeing stewardship on a broader scale, not just taking care of the planet, which really gets you nowhere when you start talking to the communities that are involved in that process, if you don't meet them where they are and understand what they're going through. And then, of course, there's the personal aspect where, are you ready mentally for these conversations? Are you ready to engage in, hard dialogue about what it means to be a steward and to make those decisions? And some of those decisions require you to think broadly. You think about the triple bottom line, for example, it's people, planet, profit. It's a lot. It's not just thinking about, immediate needs, but it's a really, like you guys already know, it's kind of a long-term thought process. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's what I'm doing. And I've definitely enjoyed, the ever expanding scope of experiences. Right now, one thing that I'm very excited about, over the last 2 years, I've been working on a project in my home country, and kind of circling back, if you will, to the beginning. I have some ancestral land that I've been able to access, and I'm slowly building a nature center where I want to have students come and do research. I want them to experience caving. I want them to experience, the marine environment. I want to talk about and do research on issues related to climate change, especially in island environments where climate change is such an impactful thing. Sea level rise impacts the corals, and also too plastic pollution. On this particular island, for example, you have plastic that drifts for miles and ends up on the shores of many of my neighbors in these communities, and they have no idea where the plastic is coming from. But there's lots of research that can be done to understand how plastic pollution is impacting, these island nations, the Bahamas being one of them. So there's still a lot of work to do. There's more people to meet. There's exciting things going on. This, I hope, is going to be a part of my doctoral work, which I started a bit more seriously this year, just looking at ways to engage the public on public lands, but not necessarily only on public lands, but just to get people in more informal environments, not traditional classroom environments, having them do science, having them answer questions, and really trying to solve environmental problems. So this is kind of where I am right now, looking forward for the next 5 to 10 years, long term, about what my goals are. So let's see, I hope I didn't take too much time there. I hopefully left some room for questions, but I want to leave this with you. If you have goals, which I hope you all do, take advantage of them. Open the doors, network, meet with people. Exactly what you're doing now. Listen to folks and hear their story, and reflect on your own story, because your story is what has gotten you here. It's the motivators that have gotten you this far. And those things will keep you going as you propel, yourself to success in your own career and life. And that's what I've got. Who's got questions? Let me unshare here.
So Stefan, you may not be able to see the chat box.
I couldn't, no.
Yeah, sometimes when you do the screen share, it hides the chat box. So some questions are there, and then Andres will lead the questions, and I think his group has prepared questions.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah. So, we have a question from Sarah here. And she's just asking, how do you think stewardship and outdoor experiences can benefit people's health and well-being, especially amidst the pandemic?
That's a very good question. I think immediately about, park prescriptions and how, doctors have actually been prescribing park experiences for, depression and other forms of anxiety. And I think the outdoors represent such a place of solitude and reflection. And, there are some studies that show that, being outside helps to lower stress levels, help to, boost all of those important, hormones that, make us feel better. So I think that outdoor experiences in particular are beneficial because they help us to reflect, and also to get back to our bearing in terms of, who we are. I think spending time inside has been kind of a problem for us in general, our kids and also ourselves. We kind of have, nature deficit disorder, not being able to access the outdoors. The pandemic obviously exacerbating that to a wide degree, but yeah, being outside and getting that vitamin D, and just seeing nature, in its not, in its state around you, just kind of really gives you a chance to get back to how things really are, kind of the wild, and the raw feeling of being in nature. And then for me, growing up in the islands, that was one of the things that always kind of set me free from all of the poverty that I saw. Even though I grew up in a bar, over a bar, I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment over a bar. I could always go to the roof and watch the sunset, and I could escape, if you will, from the craziness of, drunk guys shouting at my mom at night. It was just one of those places I can go to just get back to, what's really happening around me.
And I actually have a follow-up question from Sarah's question here. I was wondering, you say everyone sort of interacts with the outdoors differently, which is absolutely true. I was just wondering, what do you think, how is it, what did the outdoors tell us about inequality, I suppose? What is it that you're seeing, and what are the indicators that there are inequalities being observed and being felt from different types of people?
Well, I will say this. I mean, let's get back to biodiversity again, and the absence of biodiversity, which is a monoculture. Nature doesn't really like that type of situation. Nature prefers variety. When you have a more diverse pool of genes, you just have, more exciting mutations happening, which opens the door for just greater benefit and enhancement, if you will, over time. And that's just basic natural selection, having more to work with. And so we can learn there. We can also learn from symbiotic relationships, how if species are willing to work together on that lowest level, if you will. If you want to think about it from that standpoint, us being on a higher level. You don't have to do that, but just think about how organisms are able to cooperate. Just think about how the cell itself, when you look at mitochondria, you know, there's the evidence there that the cell itself is a product of cooperation. It just speaks to what we are missing and what we're lacking in many ways. Why can't we take the same approach, you know, to symbiosis in our work environments? Why is it that for so long, you know, women have been unable to you know, claim their rightful place in many work environments? Why does it seem that, you know, there's a hierarchy there? It just shouldn't be that way. If you understand and value what women bring to the table, it just doesn't make sense to deny them access to the same things that anybody, you know, men have access to. It just doesn't make any sense. And nature gives us really a model to follow in that regard.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Looks like we have some more questions here. One from Elise being, how are you connecting with people, organizations back in your home country, and how are you able to start new project as an outsider?
That's a very good question. Well, one aspect of stewardship is relationships. So I take relationships very, very seriously. I keep a very close eye on my relationships with my friends and family back home. I've worked very closely with a consulting company, SEV, and we apply for funding to do local projects in the Bahamas. And so last year, we finally kind of finished up the first part of our hazardous waste materials inventory in the Bahamas. So I'm still kind of working through and helping the Bahamas to meet their obligations under the Stockholm Convention. So one of the things that we had to do was develop a proper hazardous waste inventory. And the second part is going to be to actually do some analyses and quantify, you know, what are our levels of PCBs? What are our levels of flame retardants? What are our levels of, you know, many other organochlorine pesticides and things like that. So the work is ongoing, but you know, I network very closely with local scientists there, and I offer my services to my community, because I think that, you know, my community is a part of what has helped me to get to where I am. So, you know, I have to pay it forward and give back as much as I can. And in terms of being an outsider, you know, I'm sure for some, I probably do present kind of that image of an outsider. But when I get home, you know, I'm home. Even if I live here, when I get home, I'm with my cousins. I'm with my family. My mom still lives on there, so you know, I'm not that far removed, if you will. My family members are still there. When I go to Long Island, yeah, I'm staying with family. And those ancestral lands are managed by my family members. So when I go home, I'm immersed. I don't try to stay in the hotel and be bougie. You know, I'm staying, you know, with my family. And if there's no water, or I'm home. So I take being home as I'm putting clothes on the line like everybody else. You know, I'm cooking food just like everybody else because I'm home. I'm with my family. That's a good question. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a question from Sarah Green that says, do you connect your work with SDG 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities?
No, I have not done much work with SDG 11, but I'm definitely interested, you know, in people that are doing that work. And I guess for me, you know, I've tried to get mostly involved with youth advocacy. So that's kind of been my focus, really working to prepare young people for conservation careers, and also helping them to develop a strong stewardship ethic so that they can persist and be sustainable. Because what happens is many folks get into conservation environments. People of color, for example, get in there and the retention is low because they don't feel accepted. They don't feel included in conversations. The environment's not equitable. So I'm hoping to build stewardship ethic to where, you know, young folks entering into conservation careers can feel like they have a community of people supporting them and that they're not alone in their stewardship journey. That's been my focus so far, but I'm definitely interested in partnering with people who are doing work and as it relates to anything community oriented.
Awesome, thank you. And we have a question from Emma here that says, as you've been working with communities, have you found that young people interact with the natural world in different ways than people from other generations? And do they have different goals for environmental stewardship?
You know what? That's a good question. Yes and no. I think no matter how young you are, if you get out, get out here and you're kind of, swimming, in the shallows, and you're still looking for the same things. You want clean air, you want pure water, you want, those are the kind of things that are constant regardless, generation to generation. These are the things that, are kind of on the most basic level in terms of like, the hierarchy of needs. I need my food to be good. I need my air quality to be good. But as it relates for, you know, in terms of the future, I think climate change has become such an important part of the conversation that a lot of young people are asking the question, like, how can we be a part of helping to mitigate climate change impacts, which, compared to maybe previous generations wasn't as much on the radar, but it's definitely on the radar, for folks in my immediate community, in my island, in my island community, they're thinking about climate change impacts and pressuring the government to make decisions, better decisions. But youth in general, when I talk to young people, they care about environmental issues and they want to know what the facts are. They don't want to hear from politicians. They don't want to hear from, people on YouTube. They want to talk to scientists who can give them, the facts, give them the data. And I think that's how it should be. If we want to make good decisions, we have to make good decisions based on good information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, I see a good question there. Ooh, I wonder how to take lab research to real scale life to solve environmental problems. That's a really good question. Let me tell you, when I was doing my grad work, and I was collecting blood samples from the turtles, I would always ask myself, okay, this is stupid. I'm just taking blood samples from a turtle. How am I helping? how am I doing anything valuable? And then we looked at turtles, obviously as a bioindicator and as a long-lived species, could tell the story of the river over a long period of time. And then the jump to human impact started to crystallize for me. I started to get it a little bit. And I think that it's very important for scientists to be able to find ways to translate information that we collect in the field, that hard data. We need to be able to translate that into something that people can understand and appreciate. And it's not easy to do, unless you have that skill set to communicate the things that you know, or the things that you've discovered, or the things that you're working on. One way that I try to tell the story of what's happening in science is through music. So I write songs about climate change. I write songs about forests and things that I feel passionate about. And I take my songs and I make lessons for my middle school students around those songs, so that they can realize that it's not just a graph. It's not just a data table. Like, there's real impacts to what this data is telling you. But you need someone to kind of walk you through it. And I think the public in many ways needs scientists to help them walk through what it is that they're actually seeing in a table, on a chart. And if we just leave it there and just say, no, you figure it out, then we miss an important stewardship opportunity to really help the public understand what these impacts, really mean, and how they're going to be affected as a public as a result of, the outputs of our data sets. Can you share a song with us? Yeah. I can't at the moment. I don't have my instrument with me, but I could definitely point you to where you can go. I wrote a song with Greening Youth and the U.S. Forest Service over the summer. It's called Forest Army, and you can find that song on YouTube. You can just type in Forest Army Scientist, or type in Forest Army Forest Service, and you should be able to find it. And it's just a song talking about the value of public lands and how young people are. They are the protectors. It's really, they are the ones that are going to continue to carry on the mission of making sure that our forests are taken care of. And they're such an important part of that process. We need to engage them now. And what the Forest Service has, they have an ambassadors program where they recruit 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and give them stewardship projects to work on. And some of them do websites where they talk about forest issues. Some of them do artwork. Some of them write songs. And so engaging them very early and answering questions about, forest management, forest issues, and how they can come up with solutions. It doesn't matter. You could be a 12-year-old and come up with a solution. You know, it's just a matter of, do you have the information that you need to think about a solution and come up with one? So the earlier you engage them, the better. You know, and that's any talent or gift that you have to engage young people, to engage people and help them to understand why the science is so important, take it. Because most people, they're afraid of science. A lot of people fear, you know, just the idea that humans can actually know something. People are afraid of that. Like, how could you possibly know? Well, because we spend time with this thing. I mean, some folks, obviously, we know this, devote their lives to trying to understand the way the world works. Some people are afraid of that. They're afraid of the fact that we can actually learn and know our planet and know and have a true sense of patterns and can make predictions. And that's one of the beautiful things that science allows us to do. And we should use it to help make the world a better place.
Well, actually, I have a quick question. I saw Gillian mention earlier that you are a very good poet. And I have a question about your artistic pursuit, I guess. And I was wondering if when you were young, you found that your passion for environmental stewardship, for environmental action, and for these such tight relationships with both society and your surrounding people and environment, is that something which came before the poetry, or is that something you discovered during your time in the environment, or did you draw your inspiration? Oh, well, which journey began first?
That's a good question.
First, I suppose.
I think, you know, I would definitely have to go with the beauty. Yeah, beauty came first for me. You know, arts, you know, just the beauty of nature is what drew me to my pursuit of a career in environmental science. The beauty of the environment, my desire to want to see that beauty continue. I think that's the aesthetics of things is what kind of drew me to it. And whenever I would write about just the beauty. I didn't have the technical understanding, and I've been singing ever since I was writing songs, you know, as a teenager. So I mean, yeah, definitely the music and just the aesthetic understanding of nature and why it's important. That came first for me, and I still reflect on that deeply. I think a lot of people that end up, you know, pursuing careers in science, we're often told, and I'm not saying that this is everybody's experience, but we're often told you have to choose. You know, you can't be an artist and try to be all quote unquote creative per se when you become a scientist. It's all about, and then, you know, you meet someone like a Dr. Bowser, who's an incredible artist. I mean, just phenomenal. And I've met other people like her who have just challenged my notion of what a scientist is supposed to be and do, and just give me peace to say, hey, I can function as a creative person even as I pursue a career in science. And I think we've shut off a lot of people's energies to make the world a better place. We've tried to put people in boxes and tell them you can only do this, when there's so much that we can offer to the world in terms of helping them to understand scientific ideas. I think about my textbooks when I go through my textbooks and how much art is in my textbooks. Every time I see a graph or a picture, it just helps to explain things so much better. And my students gravitate to pictures because there's just something there in the visual that you can't get in the table, you know? So we need that. We absolutely need that. And the fact that that gets cut off sometimes is just really, in a way, it's distressing. I love to draw the science of dragons. Yeah, we've had some good times drawing some cool stuff. And in the RMSSN experiences, you know, that's encouraged. And I think that it should be encouraged in general when scientists get together. What other gifts and talents do you have? How can you bring those to bear? How can you use those as opportunities to share and to explain what science means and how it benefits society? It's so important. Oh yeah, I remember drawing Roosevelt Arch. I still have that painting, that picture somewhere. Yeah. So maybe some of you have other talents. Maybe some of you all are poets or, you know, graphic designers or even folks that do theater. You know, you can create stories around issues of climate, create stories around, you know, pollution issues, create stories about sustainability and how Indigenous people, for example, you know, how they work to pass on their Indigenous knowledge to future generations. Like there's so much that we can be doing when we get out of the, you know, the box of what we're expected to, you know, to be or do as scientists. or people that, pursue careers in science.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we can backtrack a little bit. Melissa had a question about how do we go about discussing stewardship with people from city areas in a meaningful and long-lasting way? And do you have any key messages you would share with them?
Yeah, sure. I think cities are an important area to consider. I don't think that we should only look at, beaches and forests. I think wherever people dwell, there's an opportunity to steward that particular space. So if it's a city, the question is, how can you connect people to, the natural world in your cityscape? How can you help people to understand core scientific truths, core truths about the future of our planet and what needs to happen to continue, the natural processes that are happening. How do you talk to people in city environments for them to see that? So I would say just look for opportunities in your cityscape to pull scientific truths about what's going on, pull environmental issues, out of experiences that people have in cities, whether it's waste management, whether it's, transportation issues. I know in Atlanta, for example, in the city of Atlanta, we have major transportation issues. And those come with issues of inequity as well. So there's lots of conversations that you could have even within city environments as it relates to sustainability, as it relates to stewardship of whatever natural spaces or whatever wildlife exists in those spaces. So, take advantage of whatever is there, find out whatever is there, keep it place-based. You don't have to get out of the city to make an impact and to educate people about the importance of sustainable living.
So Stefan, thank you so much. I mean, that was a great presentation. We do have to be mindful of our time here. So maybe if you have one more sort of closing comment, for the students, if you're able to turn your video on, let's please give Stefan a nice big thank you clap with our videos on, and for taking the time to share with us and share his stories. And what's so important, yeah, it's just the importance of stories is something we should not underestimate in anything. So if you want to give us one quick comment to close, the class does end at 2:15. So do you have a last comment to share with us? And God,
I would just say, in your stewardship journey, just remember, to keep it intersectional, man. Look at the ways that things relate to each other. Don't just think about things binary. Don't just think about things as being kind of, in boxes. Just really look for the connections between, environmental issues and economic issues, environmental issues and issues that relate to, human impact, and really search for those connections. It's in those connections are where we find some really important solutions. And that I'm speaking to myself as well. I'm really trying to get out of, pigeonholing myself into one box and really kind of trying to see things from as many different vantage points as possible. And the more well-rounded we are, the more we kind of stay in the interspace. That's where we will, I think, find our way forward as scientists, educators, in whatever career path that you end up in. And much success to each of you. I know all of you are, pursuing whatever degree you're pursuing. Much success to you, and hopefully I get to see you on the trails or see you at a park somewhere in the future. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Stefan. And thanks to all, and we will see you all next week. And that was a great talk. I feel quite inspiring, and go out and enjoy some nature. So thanks again.
Thanks all. Have a great day.